In this video, I'm going to look at how to structure your courses in SAP Enable Now. These are your presentations, whether this is for instructor-led training or as an e-learning module. But specifically, I'm going to look at whether you should use groups or books for structuring. So I've got two courses here. They've both got exactly the same content in them. They're to do with integration with SAP Solution Manager. Don't worry about that. It's just the structure that I want to concentrate on. One of these has been built using a book for the main entry point and then sub-books within that for the sections within it. And there's two sections in here, Overview and Working with SAP Solution Manager. The other course has got exactly the same content, but those two sections are done using groups and not books. So there's often a lot of debate over which you should use and why. My preference is to use books as the chapters or the sections or the lessons within that course and not use groups. And I'll show you why in this video. So I have these two courses set up, SEN Books and SEN Groups, named just so we can see which is which, that have got exactly the same content apart from how these are structured. Now, if I go and look at how these are set up as courses in Manager, I have both courses set up as assignments, as I'm using SAP Enable Now as my LMS. And they're both set up in exactly the same way with exactly the same settings, which is to display as object and direct sub-objects. That's an important thing. We'll get back to that in a minute. But they're both set up exactly the same way. So now let's go and look at how they're presented to users. I'm going to go to my Learner view. And these are my two courses. You can see I've not done anything with them yet. This is my first one, my one where I'm using books for the lessons. And you can see that I have in here my main course and I have my two sections within that. Remember that it's set up to show immediate sub-objects. So that's what I'm seeing here. I'm just seeing that section for overview and that section for working with SAP Solution Manager. So what I want to show you here though is if I launch this, the way I've got this set up, I'm not using the learning path mode, so I can actually carry out any of these sections in any order that I like. So I'm just going to go into the overview section because it's only got a couple of pages in it, and we'll see what that looks like. So I launch that particular section of the course, and this is what I get. It's just the overview. There's literally 2 pages in it, this one and this one. And now I'm basically done. That's the end of this course. So I'll close this down, go back to Manager, and you can see now my overview section is complete, and I am effectively 33% of the way through the course because there's more in this other section, but you can see overview is done. Now let's look at how that works with our one that's set up as groups. So I'll select that. Ostensibly looks the same. I still see both of those sections in it. They've now got the little group symbol instead of the book symbol, which I don't think looks as clean and professional, but it will still kind of more or less work the same way. If I do the same thing and go into overview here, what's going to happen is instead of launching it directly in the book reader, what it's doing is it's opening that group, and that group happens to have these things in it. So if I want to play these back, I basically have to select each individual page in here. So this interface is certainly not as nice and doesn't really look like part of a course if I've got to go through each page individually here. So let me close that down, come back to here. So the first problem is that I don't see any completion information in here, which is kind of odd because I've just been through this overview section, but it doesn't really know that I've completed it because it wasn't really in a book. And I don't get any completion at this level either. So something's not quite right there. It's just not showing me what I think it should. So I'm going to go to the reporting and I'm going to go to lessons by assignment. This course has only been assigned to me. I'm going to start with my book one, this one, assigned to me. I'm going to look at that. And this shows me my progress through this course. And here, unfortunately, it lists these things in alphabetical order, as opposed to the order they actually appear, which I don't really see the point in, but that's how the product works. So here's my main book, SEN Books, and then I've got my overview section, and you can see that I've completed that section. It took me 12 seconds, but I completed it. And I've got this one working with SAP Solution Manager, my second section, I've not started yet. So that's what I see here. But now let me go and look at the other one. Let me go and look at the groups one. Now all I get is this level. I get the course level. I don't get anything underneath that because I don't have further books underneath that, and this report will only really list books and how far you've got through them. Because the only book I have is this overall course level book, I don't see any breakdown in here. Even if it had somehow recorded that I'd been through that one section, I would still only see that I've completed a bit of the course. I wouldn't know that I've completed that specific section. So this to me is the main problem with using groups. Well, there's two problems. One, it doesn't display nicely if you go into it at the group level versus going into it at the lesson level. If you're using books instead, it still opens in the book reader. The other thing is I don't really see, as a manager, if I'm coming here and looking at progress of users through this particular course, all I see is consumption at the course level. I don't see, oh yeah, most people have been through the first couple of sections, they've just not done the third one yet. I don't have that level of granularity in here. And finally, if you're wondering what that looks like in an actual SCORM compliant LMS, I've loaded these into SCORM Cloud. And if I look at those, my first one with the books, if I preview that, what I see in here is more or less what I'd expect. There's the things wrapped around it, but ultimately I've got my book here, SEN Books. I've got my overview book, which I can click on and launch. And I've got my second section working with SAP Solution Manager, which I can also click on and get to. So now let's have a look at what the groups one looks like. I'll preview that. And I get a lot more in it. I've got my group here, my course group, and then I've got my course book. I've got my overview group here, which has 2 slides in it. And then I've got my working with SAP Solution Manager group, which has got all of these slides in it. And I have to select these individually, just the same way I did when we were trying to launch it through the trainer. It has all of these as individual objects. If you only ever launch things at the group level, then that's great. But this is not really going to be that effective for learners. So again, this is not really a great solution. And that's really all I wanted to go through on here. So again, going back to where we began, if you use books, users can launch those books in the book reader. It will play normally as opposed to them having to select it in the navigation pane on the left. So it looks more natural, and it means that the overall course will operate the same way as the individual simulations. They'll launch the same way. If you use groups, you don't get that. And then on the tracking, you can see the tracking at the individual lesson level because we're using books. You don't see that if you're using groups. So again, to me, it's cleaner and looks nicer if you use sub-books within your overall course book for the lessons, sections, whatever you want to call those, chapters maybe. Okay, that was it. Hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching.